All right, well, welcome to the fourth episode of our Acre podcast, where we talk about all things art, culture, religion, and entrepreneurship. We're in for a treat today. We've got Jasmine Miller with Crosstown Arts, and I'm not going to butcher introducing her. I'm going to let her do that, but we're going to get into a bunch of different topics today, everything from your personal creative process to all the great stuff that's happening, not just with Crosstown, but also with Crosstown Arts specifically, and what that's meaning for the community here. So before we do any of that, why don't you just tell us who you are?
You too.
Well, thank you for coming in. I know your time is precious, especially with everything going on with the chaos of Crosstown.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, awesome to have you in the studio.
Yeah, it's great to be
here.
here.
My office.
Yes,
yeah.
Great to be here. Yes,
so
as
official.
I mentioned, I love the exposed bricks, looking nice.
There you go. See, we're artistic here.
That's right.
We kind of got a little bit of a vibe going.
Y'all got nudge.
All right. So, fill me in. So, the Crosstown Concourse is a big old deal happening in the. Is it now called the Crosstown area of Memphis?
It's called the Crosstown area of Memphis, and we're realizing that there are portions of the neighborhood that have been calling it that for years. Some people might call it Midtown. Some people still do call it Midtown, but
bitterly.
But you know, they get into that territorial war thing. Right. I don't know what all that's about, but we call it the Crosstown.
Right.
Area.
So it's properly called Crosstown.
Sure.
Let's call it what it is.
All right, let's call it what it is.
All right, so it's a giant building, right?
Yes,
and it's
1.5 million square feet to be exact.
Whoa,
yes.
1.5 million. You want to fact check that, McGarry? Make sure she's not coming in here boasting about ridiculous numbers.
Check the facts.
All right, so this is going to be a space that's like just crammed with all sorts of things, right? Retail, business. Is there a school?
There's a school coming.
Okay. So help me understand what Crosstown is.
Yes. Okay. So let's dial it back a little bit. In 1927, the building's built, and this is the old Sears building. So this was essentially meant to be a distribution center, and we have, and you can fact check this because I always get it wrong, I think 8 buildings like it in the U.S. So there's one in Atlanta that you can go visit.
What do you mean like it? Like just giant building?
Giant building, giant Sears building.
Sears distribution, got it.
Yeah. So Amazon, before Amazon, like, you know, you're getting your kid a Christmas gift and you'd go there and pick it up if you've ordered it in the catalog. So 1927, this thing's been around. Open, closed, opened again. Essentially every decade another portion was built. So now it's funny because you hear residents talk about, I live on the historic side. Well, you know, the historic side was the first side that was built in the 1920s. Technically, I live in the building. I don't live on.
You live in Crosstown?
I live in Crosstown.
Okay, so there's like living spaces.
There's living spaces,
okay.
270 apartments.
Wow.
So 7, 8, 9, and 10. The top 4 floors are all residential.
So you are all in on the Crosstown deal.
I'm all in. I walk to work on a heavy traffic day. It's a 5-minute wait on the elevator.
You live at work?
I live at work.
Technically?
I live at work.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. I live at work.
No, it's
everyone.
healthy. It's healthy. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So sorry. So they had 8 in the world distribution center.
Right.
Yeah.
So 8 in the U.S.
Historic side.
Right. And so when we essentially jumped on this project, the building had been closed, if not maybe 20 years, if not a little bit under it. Old abandoned building, and you can't justify 1.5 million space of a contemporary art museum because who would come? I believe that's like 17, 18 football fields. And, you know, you can't really justify that. So, and at the time, I was not working there. I was overseas with Soup somewhere. But Todd Richardson and McLean Wilson and Chris Miner, they originally founded this project. And so they believed that it might work if it became sort of an interior neighborhood. So they started reaching out to community businesses, other nonprofits, Church Health Center, MTR, you name it, the Curb Market, and all these folks were in on it. And so currently Church Health Center is the biggest tenant that we have in the building. They've got 100,000 square feet of space. So in the first, second, and third floors, they've got space.
Yeah.
MTR is another tenant in the building, which I know is huge around here. Let's see, the high school, there needs to be a whole podcast on
so what is
the
that?
high school
Okay.
because Crosstown High, it's essentially it's a charter school, but it's project based. So the idea is to have less seats in the school for the kids to sit and learn an official lesson, in front of a teacher, and you're taking notes. And so to spend half of your day in the classroom and then half of your day interning in the building. So
Wow.
say you're a ninth grader and you think, okay, I want to be in the medical field. Ideally, your day would be getting that kind of well-rounded diet of, of the sciences, of English, of the arts and all that.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah. And then the other half of the day, getting to intern in the church health center. And the same with kids who are interested in theater. Half of the day they'd be getting what the other kids are getting, and then the other half, maybe they get to intern with me. I don't know. To come to do things with the theater.
What are you doing?
So I do many things. Most of my job is theater. So programming. We don't have a theater yet, so it's pretty cool. It's like being a chef waiting for the kitchen to be built. But the fun thing about theater is you can do it anywhere, anytime, anywhere, as long as you just need people. And we've got about 40 kids in the program right now, Crosstown Youth Theater, and it's essentially a devised youth theater where we've got kids who have a strong writing gift. They come in on Mondays and they devise and write a story. We've got kids who are just interested in designing. So they come in, they do photography, they read the script, they interpret the script, and they say, okay, so we need 2 chairs, we need masks, we need fans. How many of those do we need? So they judge that depending on how many actors we have come in on Wednesdays who interpret the script through acting.
Right.
And then on Thursdays, it's total chaos because then everyone comes in and we see what everyone's working on. And then we've got, they're kids at the end of the day. So, we've got kids who are great actors who are like, wait, I want to work with the camera. It's like, no, wait, learn your lines, go over there, get with the group. So it's organized chaos, but there's always a performance at the end of the semester. We do it in the gallery for now, but hopefully when the theater's built in about a year, we're looking at 2018.
What's the gallery?
The gallery, man, there's so much that I have to say right now. It's not even funny, but the gallery is one of our spaces currently at Crosstown Arts. So, pause on that conversation. We're not moved into the building yet. There's Crosstown Concourse, and then there's Crosstown Arts. We are sister organizations. We're essentially one, but at the end of the day, Crosstown Arts is a tenant in the building. So this is all wrapped up in shared art making.
Is Crosstown Arts new?
Crosstown Arts, we've been around for a little more than 6 years.
Okay.
Yeah, a little more than 6 years.
So it's not like this was launched kind of as a response to the Crosstown.
No, in fact, it was
renewal.
Launched alongside. It was launched with.
Okay.
Like I said, we couldn't really justify 1.5 million square feet just for arts programming.
Yeah.
Currently, we're on the second floor. Our offices, our gallery spaces, our listening room, where we hope to program music 24/7. Our screening room, which if, say, you want to screen a film and you want an audience of 100, 150 people at the most, you can do it there. But if it's a bigger screening, then the theater might suit you better because there's 425 seats, which is coming, which will be a freestanding building outside of the Sears building on the north side.
Am I wrong? Weren't you doing some work with the University of Memphis?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I was a grad student at University of Memphis, and I directed a show as my practicum.
Which means what?
Which
Practicum.
means third year, final, like my thesis.
Okay.
Final project, I'm out of here. This is the last big thing I do.
Yeah. You got to prove yourself.
Yeah. You got to prove yourself with it.
There you go.
Exactly.
Okay.
Precisely. Yeah.
So, but you're not with U of M anymore.
I'm not with U of M.
So now you're full in on Crosstown Arts.
Fully, completely.
Wow.
Which was crazy because I was a full-time grad student and working full-time for Crosstown Arts. So the typical, and I'm training for a triathlon. So my day would typically look like, I don't know, I ask myself that every morning.
Yeah.
My day would typically look like waking up at 4:30 a.m., going to the pool by 5, getting to work.
Is there a pool at Crosstown?
There is not. We're still 50-50 on a pool. Church Health, YMCA.
What does it mean to be
pool,
50-50 on a pool?
50-50 means we might get one, and if we do, in the next couple of years maybe, but then we might not get one, because that's all wrapped up in, it's also a business space too, and where you're going to put it, and all the rules that come with building pools, like that's wrapped up in church health land.
But there's like a full-on YMCA in there too, right?
There's a full-on YMCA in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll pick that up and run with it.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're up at 4:30.
4:30.
Okay.
5 a.m. swim. I usually run right after. I'm at work
on purpose.
Okay. On purpose.
Got it.
I'm usually at work by about 8:30, 9 o'clock. Then 5 o'clock getting off, and then I would sprint to U of M for rehearsal, because the director can't be late. That's bad thing when director's late.
Are you talking about this is your schedule now?
This was my schedule
when you were
when I was a grad student. So now, thankfully, it's early mornings if I want it. I'm done at 5 o'clock. Hallelujah, somebody.
So no more 4:30 nonsense.
No more 4:30. No.
Yeah. And
not every day, anyways. Not every day.
Okay, but you're still going for the triathlon.
I am. 2 weeks. I got 2 weeks
left until it happens. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you glad you did that?
Yeah. I am.
Really?
I am. I wanted to. You know what? If I could do it all over again, I maybe would have waited until grad school was over.
You're not alive anymore.
Right.
And then just not do that. Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Conking out.
Life well lived.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. But of course in theater, I mean, it's really great to stay fit, because I still have to jump in there as an acting coach for different projects, and it's good to be in tune with your voice and with your body, and in swimming, running helps me do that.
Yeah, you make a good case. I'm still not convinced.
Yeah.
So do you have any aspirations to perform theater yourself, or you just wanted to step into the coaching mentoring role?
Actually, you know what? I did that for a couple of years. So I finished college, 21, graduated, and thought, I just majored in theater. What did I do?
What have I done?
Why have I done that? God, remind me of why I did that. I'm going to starve the rest of my life. And I met this guy, Levi Frazier, just like Mr. Miyagi. He was just like, don't worry, child. Just really ministered to my soul. And he was like, listen, these are your options. You're either going to have to move to LA and audition a whole bunch if you want to act full time on salary, and even then it's not for certain, but you're not going to be a great film actor here in Memphis.
Not a big studio scene here.
No, not it's not in LA. It's not LA.
Right.
But I'd studied there a couple of summers for college classes, and I was not sold on LA.
Really? Okay.
Was not sold on it. Nah. He said, or you move to New York and audition, which is
the
probably
stage.
More
stage oriented.
More stage, yeah. Okay. And it's probably a better option for you. You can move to Chicago and do a wealth of things. Maybe work full time, maybe work part time, and find another job somewhere else. Or you can live here, and
did you choose that option?
Create your own work.
And that's where you went.
And that's where I went. Okay. Standing in the city of Memphis, I went to the city of Memphis. And
you chose 901.
I did.
How about that? That's a nice little plug for you.
That's great. Yeah. You must have interviewed them already.
You're welcome.
Interview is a strong word. So I decided to stay here. I researched and wrote my own one-woman play on a marketable subject, Sojourner Truth, because she's historical, she's educational. There's the faith aspect. And
did you have a venue to do this in, or you just said, I'm just going to write this?
I'm just going to write this, and then hire.
With no plan for.
None. Hire a. That's what she did. When she left slavery, she was like, listen, I don't know where I'm going. I'm just going to head north and just trust God along the way. So
that's amazing.
And she literally walked to freedom. Didn't run, didn't hide, just walked. Straight up walked. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to write this show. That's the only plan I got. And at the time,
so
I was
no
working,
job.
Well, at the time I was working for Hattie Lou, but I just put in my Hattie Lou Theater.
Okay.
So African American rep
in
the city. In fact, Katori Hall was just announced their artistic director. Katori Hall had the most produced play in America for 2 years
Wow.
called The Mountaintop.
Wow.
Yeah, so she's a big deal. Worked for Hattie Lou. I loved it there, but I knew
What were you doing there?
I was doing theater education and outreach.
Okay.
Yeah.
So still sort of in a teaching role.
Still sort of in a teaching role.
Okay.
And it wasn't full time, so it wasn't I wasn't on a sustainable salary. I would have had to pick something up anyways, but I wanted to travel with this show.
Yeah.
Because that's what Levi did. That's what Darius Wallace, who's another mentor of mine, did. He supported a family on one-man shows on Frederick Douglass and Barack Obama. So I'm just like, okay.
Wow.
So that's what I'm going to try to do. And did it, and it worked. And
You wrote it.
I wrote it.
So how long did it take you?
It took me about 4 months.
Okay.
About 4 months to research and finish out this play. And I started
impressive.
in like December, finished it in, mid-March.
So what did you do with it then? Did you like take it to directors or theaters?
I hired a manager and hired someone to do website design, all that. We marketed it. And Black History Month, schools are looking for presenters.
Yeah. Because you performed it as well.
I performed it. I performed it probably over 200 times.
Wow.
Which is nothing. Like you hear people on Broadway who are leaving Hamilton, and you're like, why would you leave Hamilton? Well, after doing the same play over 700 times in a year, you're like, maybe you need a little break.
Yeah.
A little break might be nice.
Yeah.
So, but 200's nothing. So I would perform that for like 3 times in a week, and that was my bread and butter. Still auditioned here and there and did little things.
You were grinding.
I was grinding, yeah.
There you go.
And then I would leave for like a couple of weeks with Soup or something on a trip, and then come back.
I actually had a question because I'm looking at Crosstown Art's website, and
Yeah.
there are lots of different projects on there. Can you touch on some of those? Like I'm seeing Shoot and Splice, Digital Labs, Hustle, Moon Pie Project, which is like graffiti murals that people are doing. So can you talk about some of the projects and programs that are going on there?
Sure. Let's see. What do I start with? Hustle's really well attended.
What is that?
So Hustle is essentially like a come meet, greet, learn, meet other artists in Memphis and then learn about said topic. So there are times when it's how to price your artwork, and we've got photographers, we've got painters, we've got graffiti artists, you name it, who do that full time or do that on the side as a hobby. They'll come. There's a panel of like 4 people who are masters in this field. We might have a guy from the Brooks and someone from Urban Arts Commission, and they just sit up there, present on how to price your artwork, and then for 45 minutes, an hour, artists can just
So there's an
ask
actual
questions.
way to price your artwork?
There's an actual way to price. Everybody knows that experience when you go to a museum and a painting's like $800.
Yeah.
Or a photograph is
Like you just poured a
80,
bucket of paint on a sheet of paper, and you want me to spend...
My second grader could have done that.
Right, exactly.
Which is terrible to like shaming someone's uniqueness, but everybody's thought it. Like everybody's thought about that. And then there's some arts
do that?
that are great, that are phenomenal. But it's $400, and you're like, how did they get to that? How they get to that price, but not
there's a
keeping
system.
in mind that there's a system.
Wow.
That's somebody's livelihood. They're supporting a family. They had to go get supplies. They had to go get oil paints that aren't cheap.
Like Toys R Us paint aisle. Is that right? No.
A couple of grades.
Couple of grades up.
Yeah. They had to go get those mediums, and the gift of time, which, oh my gosh, I have to talk about the residency program. Spend time
with Crosstown
Arts. With Crosstown Arts. So what does that mean to price something that you made? So that's one thing, but we've had it on a number of subjects. So Hustle we have it twice a month, and it's free. It's open. It's super
like a networking,
relaxed.
Ask questions to experts, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the residency?
The residency program. So that's actually already kicked off.
Okay.
We've got, I believe, I don't know if the facts are updated on the website, but 12 spaces where essentially it's a gift of time. So artists who are local, who are national, international, from anywhere. But I think that there's a dedication to local artists, to really supporting local artists, because our vision is cultivating the creative community of Memphis. Wow. So we have to do good on that, you know, as we continue to move outward. Yeah. So there are 12 spaces, and no matter what your artistic medium is, if we can justify it in the space here, I mean, if you make hot air balloons and, you know, and do like an artistic thing with, I don't know like how that would work, but if you're a graffiti artist, if you work with
how did you get
paper,
to hot air balloons?
If you, I don't know, it's just,
the first thing
that popped in my
it's interesting.
head. First thing that popped in my head. I'm sure if you were a magician, like we totally take it.
Right.
You have to apply. So if you apply for the residency, it's the gift of time. So you get 2 weeks, a month. There, in some cases, I think you get a little more. You get a hotel style room, so your own studio.
Okay.
And meals in our cafe, which is not finished yet, but. And then you do community workshops and get to teach classes.
So it's a really short program.
It's a short program.
Okay.
But for instance, how I would have benefited from the residency program, were that around when I was writing this show, that would have been a place for me to live, a time for me to eat. I don't even have to think about cooking or where I'm going to stay, or, you know, if at the time I had roommates, so it was just like kind of loud all the time. Like, I've got my own room where I can kind of focus, studio. I would have gotten to write this play, could have had actors come on, and if we had a theater, like had readings before an audience to see what works, what doesn't work. That's, for an artist, that's huge.
How did you come up with this?
Saying it's the gift. How did I come up? I didn't come up with it. It's too good for me to come up with it. But this is something that was brewing when I came on staff. It's something that Chris Miner and his wife Amanda Sparks, I think that they really conceived the idea and tossed it around. And Amanda heads it up now, along with Mary Jo. But like I said, we've got a muralist in there now.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you know, you often hear about stuff like that, but more often than not, it's like with like healing ministries, like rehab.
Yeah.
You know, go there for a set amount of time, 2 weeks, a month, whatever, and strip away every thought except getting over, you know, your addiction or your struggle. This is like a more proactive. It's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really cool. You're essentially doing the same thing, but instead of focusing on, you know, getting over something, you're really honing into a craft.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
It's really cool for the space, because it's not just bound to the second floor where Crosstown Art Spaces are. It's not just bound to the residency studios or the 6th and 7th floor where residents live. It's kind of living and breathing in the building. And what I mean by that is, so the building's kind of separated into atriums. Like, there's a central atrium, there's the west atrium. I live in the west atrium on the 10th floor, and I'm kind of in the corner. And so in the west atrium, your apartment faces other apartments. So when I'm in my living room, the wall is glass. And when I'm looking, I can see out into the atrium. It's funny, I can see into other apartments too if they don't have their shades down.
Wow.
Which, you know, most people do. Like, people who don't, like, they've got a lot of plants, and because the ceiling is glass, it lets in that indirect sunlight, which is really nice. It's really a bright, vibrant space. And right above me, there's a catwalk where artists who are in the program will be able to suspend their artwork. So the next 3 months, you know, there may be a sculpture hanging there, and then that comes down. And then the next 3 months after that is paper crafts or something. So it's just, you know, it's changing, and you go down a hallway and maybe there are projections rolling. It's just super creative space.
So has Crosstown sort of tasked you guys with developing that culture at Crosstown?
Sort of, yeah. Like, being the hospitality we're kind of the hospitality organization of the project. And also it's beneficial for us because artists aren't just bound to their studios and the audience that comes to them. It's a way for us to also kind of come to the audience. And that's the hope of the whole building. Like, we want to connect with Church Health. We are connecting with Church Health as much as they're connecting with us and reaching back. I believe it's Next Air that's essentially commissioned this big white square. I don't know how big it is, but it'll be for muralists to come in and do projects, and it's something that they stood behind and built.
What's really unique about that is you're not asking people to go to a gallery to experience art. You're putting art into their daily lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they don't have to like set aside time to go and do that, but they can encounter it kind of with the business of their own lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's something else.
So you're not in the building yet, right?
Not in the building yet.
Okay, but you're living there. Mm-hmm. So the theater's coming. Daniel was saying you guys do like graffiti art as well.
Yeah, so the Moon Pie Project, every 2 months, I want to say 2 months, 3 months.
Moon Pie isn't like the cake?
Moon pie is in the cake. So when we have an opening for the Moon Pie Project, we got moon pies and chips and most every kind of drink you can imagine. And then the artist gets to celebrate their work, but we'll commission a muralist. Doesn't have to be a graffiti artist.
Yeah.
Commission a muralist to come and essentially fill that space in under a week.
Wow,
so Monday, Tuesday, you'll see somebody out there grinding, with their spray paints or with their paint pens or whatever. And by Friday, they're done and audience comes to them. And we have a winter, summer, spring. We'll bring out the heaters. We'll bring out the, the snacks and all that, you name it.
Yeah.
And then we'll just have the opening out there.
So Crosstown Arts, though, is that there's a lot of actual... when you think of artwork, drawing, stuff like that, are you guys, is the theater part of Crosstown Arts?
Yes.
Okay. Is there like a music arm? Are you guys kind of diving into all these different areas?
Yes.
Okay.
So earlier I mentioned the shared art making. That's essential to our organization. So that's a wood shop. It's a sculpture. That's digital labs, which Daniel brought the digital lab up. That's a huge deal. I'll talk about that in a moment. Digital lab that will have 12 stations with all of the Avid Pro Tools and Adobe Cloud software right now for free. So if a graphic designer needs to set up office space at Crosstown Arts right now and do their thing, they're welcome to use any program that's weekly updated for free.
Who's funding this?
That's a good question. Over 30 sources.
Okay, so is Crosstown Arts, is it a nonprofit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're a nonprofit. And right now we actually have a fully functioning digital lab, but there's just six stations. We're right across the street at 430 North Watkins. North Cleveland. I'm crazy. All these addresses swimming around in my head, but 430 North Cleveland. You can find the digital lab now, but hopefully in a couple of months when we're in the building, that's when we move up to 12 stations.
So what kind of people would typically get involved with it? You know what I'm saying? Let's say I am, I'm one of the guys that's been working with Daniel on shooting music videos, recording my own stuff. Can I come to you and work with you guys with that stuff?
On programming or just to come and do your own hustle, your
just
thing?
All the things like songwriting, music production.
Absolutely. There's a space for everything in there. It's amazing. So it's kind of cool the way it works. It's an affordable art gym membership, essentially. So if you make cabinets and you get a membership, which is affordable, let me keep saying that, affordable, you'd also have access to the dark room. To the wood shop, to the to the metal shop, to the gallery space. You'd have access to pretty much anything. So the idea is to, I'm good in this thing, but let me go try my hand in this thing over here.
Very cool.
And vice versa, to just like kind of cross-pollinate art giftings and all that.
So people almost, they subscribe and then they get access to all these different facilities.
Yeah.
That they normally would cost an arm and a leg for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's so cool.
Yeah. We just got a CNC router.
those are not cheap.
Those are no, they are not cheap. They are not cheap. But you program how you want your cabinet design to look like, how you want this panel of wood to look like. In the theater, we love CNC routers. I've never worked on one. I probably never will. Let me not say that. I will when we get one in the building. But theater artists, scenic designers love these things because you can just type what you need, put the design in there, and the machine just does it all on its own.
That's
you can
what I
leave
need.
it working. That's what I need.
That's what I need. My wife keeps asking me for cabinets that, like, on the face, it's my face. So it would route it
I don't think
into the cabinet. Yeah, she asks me every day. It's just one of those things she won't get off
I
of.
need to see your face. but the idea is for artists and non-artists. I mean, this is the average Joe who makes cabinets. So I keep saying cabinets because I can't think of anything else made out of wood right now. But like the average Joe,
world,
right?
Yeah,
who just makes cabinets. Like he might want to come set up shop there, and for an affordable membership.
Is it just like one membership for everybody? This is what you pay to have access to
everything.
You just become a member of Crosstown Arts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, basically.
Have you ever heard of anything done like that?
The YMCA, maybe. I mean, I know when I go, out of town and all that.
Well, that's an actual gym.
No, I have not heard of anything.
That's so
not
unique.
Like this.
Yeah.
Not like this.
So how did you get involved with them?
How did I get them? That's a good question. Like I said, a couple of years ago, I was traveling a show and traveling with Soup a lot. And I was applying to grad school because my thing was I was either I'm going to move to New York and become a great actor and do all this stuff because I'm going to fully commit and do that thing, or I'm going to move to South Africa and become a teacher at this missionary school. There was just this heart of like art and mission that I just felt just compelled in both directions and going, what does that mean? And then one night I was just thinking, best case scenario would just be if I could do both. But I don't know where I could do both. But I would do both if I could. And so just emailed Todd Richardson because I'd always seen that building. I went to Rhodes College and we'd always talk about breaking into the old haunted building down North Parkway. And there was just a lot of motion happening. And I was curious. And it was in this neighborhood that I knew really well. And in this neighborhood that I knew had kids that don't have access to amazing places like Playhouse, where rightfully so, you're paying a scholarship, like you're paying good money to get your kid acting classes. Mm-hmm. Kids who just didn't have access to other programs, other arts programs in the community. Maybe they were affordable, but the transportation element, how are you going to get there?
Yeah.
How are you going to get there when you got to babysit your siblings? I mean, and so I thought, best case, I just started dreaming up things, drawing things in marker. Like, if I could change the world through this neighborhood, what would my dream be? And which became, what would God's dream be, and all that. And so I sat down with Todd and I was like, you know what? I want to start a youth theater here in this building. And he said,
now who's Todd?
Todd Richardson. Todd is the managing director of Crosstown Concourse and one of the founders. Okay. So Todd's the one that gave you that tour that day.
Yep.
Remember? All the people listening on this podcast, you know what I'm talking about. No, you don't.
No, you don't.
Yeah. So Todd gave us the tour that time, and at the time, there were a zillion permits that were waiting. They were still waiting for those to go through. This is
still very unfinished.
Very unfinished. It's 2013. So here I am telling him, hey, when the building's done, I'm going to start a youth theater in that building. Yeah. And he was like, okay. Okay, that's fine. He's like, well, if you're going to do that, you might as well start over here at Story Booth, which is another space in our building. So right now we're in a white strip of buildings across the street from the Sears building. Okay. And we've got our gallery space where we collaborate with artists and have and they'll have gallery openings there, and they'll get to display their work, sometimes sell their work for 2 months, or longer or shorter, depending on what the agreement is. And then there's a 430 space, which is what most people want to know about. Most local artists want to know about, because you can book that venue for $60 and charge at the door. And as long as you can justify it by art, do your thing in there for a night or two. So, so we've had bands in there who've packed 300, 400 people into that room, and they paid $60 for it. They're walking away with like $5,000 or something crazy like that. So 430 space, Story Booth, which is where we have all our literary programs and where we have our after school programs. So my typical day is I'm in, the office with my coworkers, but for most of it, I'm bringing kids into the Story Booth space, and we're writing the plays, we're designing the plays, we're rehearsing the plays, even if we do them at another venue somewhere else. And so, where was I going with this? Okay, youth theater. So told Tyler that I was going to start all that. He was like, well, a great place for you to start would be Story Booth, which I'm forever thankful for Todd for sitting down with me, not knowing who I am, but just, sure, we'll grab lunch and we'll talk. And so that's where I met a guy named Nat Aiken, who I'm forever grateful for, who didn't know me well, but said, hey, can we pay you to teach a couple of workshops? So started teaching some workshops, started going to grad school full time, and then started teaching at Rhodes. So I taught this Rhodes class on a Monday, Wednesday, children's theater. And then I would take my students over to Story Booth, and we would bus kids in from Humes, because in urban studies, they found that transportation is really the big hang up, especially in Memphis. Like we're not Chicago, where kids are like, oh, I'm just going to catch the train, catch the bus. It's Memphis, and although it's walking distance, it's not really walking distance. So that's kind of odd and strange. But Crosstown has this great access to premier transportation. So we just started busing kids in, and found that the kids love the mentorship. Some of them could totally afford programming at Playhouse, but it's just an opportunity to be with their classmates and do something after school. Some of them could not afford another program, nor did they have the means to get to a program. So that was super key for them. Some of them, I can't go because my brother or my sister, we got to walk home together and it's going to be dark. We were able to work around those obstacles. So it's just all about getting the kids to the space. It's all about process, teaching them the process of playmaking, because it's not. So it's interesting, because for me personally, it is ministry. It's the conversations on the bus. It's the conversations at school, walking home, and all that. But at the end of the day, we're an arts organization, so we have to do good on what we promise through artistic medium. So when they come, it's about teaching them how to write a play, teaching them how to act, teaching them how to. We try not to make it feel like school. So that means so it's crazy, we let them do this. I tell them, as long as you come up with your own code of conduct and hold one another accountable, I will step out of the way. Sometimes this works well. Sometimes this does not work well, because the personalities.
It's a unique approach. I've never heard of it.
And they wrote out their contract. They don't want cell phones in the space. They've got a cell phone nursery. Everyone drops their cell phone in it before they come inside, and they turn it off. Because
on their own initiative. Of
course, they're like 2 or 3 who don't agree with it. But then when the other 18 vote them out, I'm like, vote it out.
Yeah.
Nope, can't do it. And they hate, and those 3 hate it, but then they begin to love it, because it's like, okay, so I'm being listened to, I'm being looked at. Yeah. Everyone's looking up and not looking down. They essentially, if I step out of order, if I don't respect my neighbor, then this is what happens. They come up with those consequences, and I just tell them the only thing that I'll do is just hold you accountable to that. And it's really interesting. The more that we get involved in the program, the further the semester goes on. These kids who we had one semester where every single one of them in that group got suspended from school. We had no behavior problems.
Crazy.
at Story Booth. I had no behavior problems when they were just kind of self-monitoring and also had a place to put that. Like, you can totally act out, but just do it in that character if you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And
That's
then that
cool.
just changed the game. You just find the super disciplined kid who knew in 5 minutes he was going to get to tell all of his jokes.
Yeah.
So it's so
you
it's
let them
really-
be themselves.
Let them be themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's about like discovering their own voice.
That's so cool.
What am I good at? Some of them find, you know what, I'm not as good of an actor as I thought that I was, but I really like this writing thing. And not to mention test scores. It helps their reading level. Which was another kind of indirect mission for me. I was really convicted by our literacy rate. It's just way too low in the state of Tennessee. But when a kid gets a script in their hand and they read it, they have to struggle through reading it for some of them, and they have to interpret it. What does it mean? Am I angry? Am I sad? Am I frustrated? Am I happy?
They have to become that person.
You have to become that.
Yeah.
How to translate that, and then hearing what your neighbor's saying or what your scene partner's saying, and how do you truthfully respond to that? And it's a different approach to reading. Even if you never do theater again, gives you a different approach to reading, and you're going to need that the rest of your life.
That's so cool. Now you've written a couple of pieces that I've been witness to, and you turn them around super quick, right?
Oh yeah.
And no, you do.
Yeah.
And they're incredible.
Thank you.
They're incredible. So walk me through your creative process. Like, what does that look like if somebody comes to you and says, hey, do this creative project for me? I mean, what does that look like for you? Do you need a lot of time alone? Do you you think for a while? Do you have certain books you go to? How does that work?
That's So it depends. It depends. For playwriting, there's a lot of research that goes into it. So I wrote a one-woman show on human trafficking, one on Sojourner Truth. For both of those, one more than the other, there was so much research and interviewing that went into it, and then like emotional response, obviously, to the trafficking piece, because I had no idea that it was huge in Memphis. For that, you've got to wait on the writing.
What do you mean by huge?
Huge,
as in Memphis,
as in we're being on one of the major highways and connectors between Texas and in the north. There's a lot of trafficking. We're just a heavy transportation center. For it. It's a hotbed here. And so hearing that for the first time and responding to that, you can't write because you will feel differently every day, and a lot of your writing becomes very emotive, and it makes me feel better. It doesn't mean I did write, but not the actual show. You need to be in touch emotionally, but also intellectually. You have to know what you want to do with it and where you're going, where you're steering.
So is there a way you get to that spot where you're feeling connected, but also kind of outside of it enough to write it?
Time. It just takes time.
You just wait for the right time.
Yeah. Time. And this is just plays. So plays take that sort of time and that sort of emotive, and that one's kind of documentary. So it took more time than I expected. But with poetry, with spoken word, the less time I have, the better. The less
because you can't overthink it.
Can't overthink it.
Yep.
Oh man, I love it. This is gonna sound terrible, but I love it when Johnny Pineda calls me on a Monday and says, "Hey, can you write something by Tuesday and send it to me by 6:00?" And I'm like, love that, because I know that it'll be good, because I'll have 30 minutes while I'm drinking coffee the next morning to crank it out and send it to him, because I'll be busy until 5:30. And seriously, that's how it goes. The less time I have, the better. So the last piece that I got to write, Ricky actually called me for like far in advance, and just like knowing, okay, what are the boundaries? What are the ground rules? Daniel, what you got going on over there? Okay, this is where I am. All right, cool. I'm going to bake. Yeah. And I just left it alone. And just during the day, as I thought of it, I think of it. But when I forgot it, I just forgot it. And
so when it pops into your head, how do you get that idea out of your head and onto something?
Yeah. So usually when it pops in my head, there's always an image. It sounds crazy. I've always got an image in my head, and it's almost like the accelerator. Like, okay, I'm ready I know there's a poem in me now. I got to go get it out. And so for this last piece, the one that we did the final day, Black History Month, or the final celebration.
Yeah.
It was one morning at 8:00, and I sat down and I just started writing based on that image of growing up in the African American church, like all the colors, all the sounds, sometimes the smells after church, the length of the service, how cold the room was. It's like, oh, I know exactly where to take this. About 8:30, 8:45, I thought, okay, other than some tweaks, it's done. I'm going to send
30
it.
minutes.
Yeah.
But you had a
if
lot.
I had 3 hours, then it'd be like, I'd overthink it. I'd correct stuff. I'd go, that sounds weird. That looks what you can't taste a sound or smell a image. Yeah, but
right.
It's neat when you press for time and you're just letting it go. Really cool sensory things come out of that you can crisscross and not overthink. So yeah, shorter time I have the better.
So you found it more beneficial just to hit the send button.
Yes.
And just don't overthink it.
Yes. Okay. In fact, when I sent it I think I sent it to all of you guys, I might have apologized because I hadn't proofread it or anything. I just wrote it. And when
which is nuts because it was so good.
Thank you.
Yeah, you definitely have a gift.
I'm seriously humbled. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
So I'm very curious though. So did you, when you're in those spots, do you, like you said, 8:00 in the morning, did you say, okay, I'm going to sit down and write right now? Or did you say, I've got the idea, I've got to sit down and write this out?
I've got the idea, I've got to sit down and write this out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you wait till something hits you.
Yeah.
And then you take 30 minutes and you pound out a masterful work of.
Yeah. If I'm sleepy, like that idea will wake me up and I'm like, okay.
So if you say, if you're not one of those people that says at 7:30 in the morning, I need to write for an hour every single day.
No.
You wait for it to hit,
and
then you capitalize.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I know you're out of time, but so where can people get involved with Crosstown, with you, with
in fact,
all the work you're doing?
Yes. So, did you want me to give an overview?
Yes, please.
Overview. So Crosstown Arts is a nonprofit and arts organization here in the city of Memphis, and our vision is to cultivate the creative community. So if you want to get involved, I not only do the programming for the Future Theater. I also coordinate volunteers. So you can email me at Jasmine, that's Jazmin, no S, no E. People do it every time. Jazmin at crosstownarts.org.
Okay. And crosstownarts.org is the website. They can go in and get
That's right.
bunch of information, stuff like that. Well, if you're cool with it, I think we need to have you back in because there's much more to discuss.
Yeah.
But I know you don't have time.
I'm down.
So we're going to let you go. But thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
You've been such a gift to fellowship and
oh my God,
just producing your creative work. Don't act like you don't know it. You know it.
Thank you.
You know it.
Oh, there's so much. So much I could say. Thank you.
All right. Well, we're going to have her back, folks. Jazz, we appreciate you. Email her. Get involved. Crosstown Arts. Right now. They're available right now, right? They can get involved right now?
That's right.
All right, cool. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're definitely going to have you back.
Awesome. Love it.